Simon Sinek, the famous speaker on leadership, he talks about this key concept: start with why. Start with your why. And that concept is very important when it comes to communication. It benefited me a lot when it comes to overcoming my fear of speaking. So he talks about the idea of starting with your why. In his famous TED talk, he said a lot of organizations, they focus on the what, the how, then the why. But instead, we should focus on the why first, and the how and the what comes later. How this has helped me when it comes to speaking is, especially when it comes to the fear of speaking, I would feel scared because I don't know how would people react, how people would feel, and that fear would be a limiting belief that would inhibit or be a barrier to me speaking. And so what helped me overcome that barrier was knowing my why. If I had a very strong why, then that barrier of what others might think or how I would be perceived would not be strong enough to hold my why. But if my why wasn't strong enough, then that barrier would be high and I wouldn't be able to jump over that barrier. So essentially, that fear of what other people will think, how I'll be perceived, what if I embarrass myself, that still remains. But if you can focus more on your why to overcome that barrier, that will help a lot when it comes to your speaking or doing anything which you might have some sort of fear or concern over. Anything that goes outside your comfort zone. So, think about your why. Why is it that you want to speak? Why is it that you're delivering this lecture or presentation in front of this audience? Why is it that you're acting in this way in front of this interview? If you really want this job, you know you need to talk about what you've achieved, your accomplishments, why you're the best person for the job. But if you don't really have that much of a why in an interview, for instance, you're not really that concerned with the job. Maybe you're not going to try as much. You're not going to try to convince the other person, the one interviewing you, why you're the best person for the job. You're not going to try as much to sell yourself. So think a lot about your why. Emphasize on your why. Ponder, reflect, and the more you think about it, the more it will increase. That energy, that desire will increase your why, and that will help you when overcoming that obstacle of the fear of what other people will think, that embarrassment, those concerns. So think, what is your why in any single situation? When it comes to an interview, when conversing with others, when doing any scary task, when speaking in front of an audience, always go back to your why. So if I'm speaking in front of an audience and I'm nervous what other people will think and what they'll say, I can come back to my why. Why is it that I'm speaking to the people? Why is it that I'm talking about this particular topic or subject? It's something which is really important to me. It's something that I want others to hear. I feel like it can make an impact. I really want to get this message across. That is a very strong why. And that why is strong enough to overcome any of my limiting beliefs of what other people will think or any other fears I have. So really focus on your why. What is your why? And with that, that will help you overcome these limiting beliefs.